Today we're looking at the United States entry into World War I. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com where you'll find more resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. As World War I began in the summer of 1914, after years of military buildup and a complicated web of alliances thrust European nations into conflict, the United States remained neutral and stayed out of the war. Yet by April of 1917, the United States felt compelled to enter the conflict. President Woodrow Wilson, who was president from 1913 to 1921, had maintained a stance of neutrality as World War I raged in Europe from 1914 to 1917. Wilson preferred to address the issue through negotiation and diplomacy. In fact, Wilson's campaign slogan for re-election was, "He kept us out of war." But as the conflict in Europe grew, Wilson and the United States were running out of options. Much of the tensions focused on the naval war taking place primarily between Britain and Germany. In February of 1915, Germany declared that the waters around Great Britain were a war zone and that German battleships and submarines would sink any ship, whether it be a military vessel or civilian ship, in that area without warning. In response, the British established a blockade of German ports, not allowing supplies to reach Germany. Then in May of 1915, a German U-boat sunk the Lusitania, a British passenger ship. Close to 1,200 civilians were killed, including over 100 American passengers. The British were outraged and expected the United States to soon enter the war on their side. But President Wilson instead called on Germany to stop its policy of sinking ships without warning, and also told Germany that any further attacks would be considered, quote, deliberately unfriendly. The British were not happy with the response, but the U.S. did stay out of the war. Then in April of 1916, a German U-boat sunk a passenger vessel, the Sussex, killing 80 and injuring 2 Americans. President Woodrow Wilson threatened to cut off diplomatic ties with Germany, and Germany then signed the Sussex Pledge, promising to give warning to passenger vessels before firing on them. But then shortly after, in January of 1917, Germany announced that it would sink any sea vessel sailing to Allied ports. With this announcement, Wilson officially broke off diplomatic relations with Germany. Interestingly, Germany knew that this announcement would very likely bring the United States into the war, but German leaders believed they could defeat Britain before the U.S. was able to fully mobilize and enter the war. President Wilson and Americans were now on the brink of entering World War I, but a few more events would push them over the edge. A few weeks after the German announcement of unrestricted naval warfare, British agents intercepted a message sent from Arthur Zimmermann, the foreign minister of Germany, to the Mexican government. In the Zimmermann telegram, Germany offered to make an alliance with Mexico against the United States if the United States entered the war. American newspapers published the telegram, and Americans were outraged. Shortly thereafter, a revolution began in Russia in February of 1917, in which the ruling family of Russia was removed from power, and Russia promised to have more democratic elections. Wilson now saw joining the Allies in the war as also being a war to expand democracy. Then in March of 1917, 4 American merchant ships were sunk by German U-boats. President Wilson now decided that the only course for America was to enter the war. On April 2, 1917, 2.5 years after World War I had begun, President Wilson officially asked Congress to declare war against Germany. Although Congress did vote in favor of declaring war, the vote was by no means unanimous. 56 members of the House of Representatives and Senate voted against going to war. On April 6, 1917, Woodrow Wilson signed the resolution, and the United States was now officially part of World War I. Although the U.S. had declared war, the military itself was not necessarily fully prepared to enter such a major conflict. When the war was declared, the United States military had a force of approximately 130,000 soldiers. Very quickly, though, an additional 2 million Americans volunteered to fight, and then close to 3 million more Americans were drafted to join the military through the Selective Service Act, which was passed by Congress in May of 1917. The American Expeditionary Force was placed under the command of General John J. Pershing and would first arrive in Europe in June of 1917, but would not see full action on the Western Front until October of that year. America's entrance into the war in 1917 on the side of the Allies would turn the tide of the war, and by November of 1918, an armistice would be signed, bringing the fighting to an end. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.